She stepped to the center of the stage. She reached up with one hand and pushed her hair back from the right side of her face. She lifted her chin. She held it there, in the full light, and she did not look away. And Simon Cowell, the man who had spent his career telling people what was wrong with them, sat forward in his chair and couldn't speak a single word. Another Tuesday night taping, the Pasadena Civic Auditorium, packed with 3,000 people. Cameras rolling, millions watching from home. Another hopeful contestant stepping into the spotlight. Simon Cowell sat at the judge's table in his black shirt, arms crossed, that familiar expression of careful assessment already in place. He had judged beauty and talent and resilience and heartbreak. He had not yet been asked to sit in the presence of what walked out onto that stage tonight. The girl who walked out was 16 years old. Her name was Jess Calloway. She was from Fayetteville, North Carolina. She wore her dark hair down, long enough to fall past her jaw on both sides, and she walked the way teenagers walk when they are trying to appear less nervous than they are. Quickly. With purpose. With their chin slightly down. The right side of her face, largely obscured by the curtain of hair, carried a scar that ran from her cheekbone to her jaw. It was 3 years old. She had been 13 when it happened. She had spent the 3 years since perfecting the exact angle at which she needed to hold her head so that people's eyes went somewhere other than there. Terry Crews greeted her with a smile that was warm enough to mean it. "Jess, welcome. Where are you from?" "Fayetteville, North Carolina," she said. "Fort Bragg area. Military family?" "Yes, sir, my dad's Army. He's overseas right now, actually, on deployment." She paused. "He's watching. He said he'd find a way to watch." The audience responded to that, a warm, collective sound. A few people applauded. Terry nodded. "What are you going to do for us tonight?" "I'm going to sing," she said. "But I need to do something first." She looked at Simon Cowell. "My dad met you once," she said, "about 4 years ago, before his second tour. He told me what you said to him. He wrote it in a letter he left for me before he deployed." She stopped for a moment. "Then, he also told me that when I was ready, that when I found the right moment, I should stop hiding." She reached up. She pushed her hair back from the right side of her face with one deliberate hand. She lifted her chin and turned it slightly toward the light. She held it there. The scar caught the stage lighting and did not flinch from it. 3 seconds. 4. She stood in front of 3,000 people and let them see the things she had spent 3 years hiding, and she did not look away from a single one of them. Simon Cowell sat forward. His arms came uncrossed. He set both hands flat on the table, and he stared at this 16-year-old girl holding herself in the light. And his face did something it was not accustomed to doing in public. His jaw tightened. His eyes went bright. He sat forward, and he couldn't speak a single word. Howie Mandel had both hands pressed together in front of his mouth, elbows on the table, not moving. Heidi Klum had her hand over her heart, and her eyes were wet. Sofia Vergara was completely still, watching Jess with the particular attention of a person witnessing something that requires witnessing. In 15 seasons, no one had seen this panel of judges go this quiet, this fast. Simon pushed his chair back. He stood. He walked around the judges' table, something he had never done in 15 seasons of this show, and he crossed to the edge of the stage and stepped up. He walked to Jess Calloway, and he stopped in front of her. She was still holding her chin up, still holding the scar in the light. "I remember your father," Simon said. Quietly, just for her, though the microphone caught it. "His name is Paul." Jess's composure moved, just slightly, the way a building moves before it settles. "Yes," she said. "He wanted to be brave, Simon said. He was worried he didn't know how. She nodded. Her jaw was tight. She was 16, and she was holding herself together in front of the world, and she was doing it extremely well. To understand what happened on that stage, you need to understand what happened 4 years earlier. In the spring of 2020, Simon Cowell's production company organized a morale event for a British Army base in Wiltshire, a taping for a charity broadcast, one of several that Simon had quietly supported in the years since his father's own military service had made him aware of what that life asked of people. It was not a publicized event. It was an afternoon's work on a Saturday. They set up in the base gymnasium, and a few hundred soldiers came through in rotation, and it was the kind of afternoon that felt small in the calendar and larger in retrospect. Simon moved through the base the way he moved through most professional environments, efficiently, with courtesy, registering what he needed to register. He shook hands. He spoke to people. He was about to go back to the production area when a young soldier stopped him near the corridor outside the gymnasium. The soldier was 26 years old, broad-shouldered, with the careful posture of someone who has been trained to take up exactly the right amount of space, and no more. His name was Paul Calloway. He was from North Carolina originally. He had been stationed in the UK for 2 years. He was deploying to Afghanistan in 11 days. He apologized for stopping Simon. He said he just wanted to say thank you for coming out. He said the base didn't get a lot of that, and it meant something. Simon looked at him for a moment. He had spoken to probably 40 people in the last 2 hours. He looked at this one differently. "Are you all right?" Simon said. Paul Calloway blinked. "Sir? You don't look all right," Simon said. Not unkindly, just directly, the way Simon said most things. "You look like a man who's trying very hard to appear as if he isn't scared." Paul Calloway was quiet for a moment. Then he said with the careful precision of someone choosing words, 11 days. Simon nodded. He understood what that meant. He did not offer reassurance. He did not say it would be fine, because he did not know that, and Paul Calloway was a soldier, and soldiers know when they are being managed. What Simon said instead was this. He said, "Being afraid and going anyway is the whole thing. That's what brave actually is. Not the absence of fear, going despite it. You already know how to do it. You've been doing it." He paused. "Don't let anyone tell you that being frightened means you're not ready. Ready and frightened are the same thing." Paul Calloway looked at him for a long moment. Then he said, "Thank you." They shook hands. Simon went back to the production area. Paul Calloway deployed to Afghanistan 11 days later. He came back. That deployment, he came back. He wrote the words down in a letter he gave to his wife before his 3rd tour. A letter for Jess, to be opened when she needed it. He wrote Simon's words in it as his own. He did not attribute them to anyone. They had become his by then. And he added, "Your scar is not a flaw. It is proof that something happened to you and you are still here. Stop apologizing for still being here. When you find the right moment, stop hiding. The right moment will feel impossible. Do it then." Jess had been 13 when the accident happened. A car, a wet road, a moment's wrong geometry. She had not been seriously hurt in ways that couldn't heal. But the scar had not healed the same way. And 13-year-old girls are not given much room to be visibly different without consequence. She had learned the angles. She had learned which lighting was safe. She had learned how to answer the questions quickly enough that people moved on. Jess read the letter the night her father left for his 3rd tour. She sat on the floor of her room with her back against the bed and read it straight through, and then read it again. She read it 17 times over the months that followed. She stood in front of the bathroom mirror at 2 in the morning, practicing the chin lift, the turn into the light, the holding still without flinching. It always felt like too much. The moment always felt like the wrong one. Then the audition announcement came, and something in her decided, without her full permission, that this was it. The impossible moment. The one the letter had described. She thought she might not have the courage. She was here anyway. He thought the corridor conversation was long behind him, one of 100 brief exchanges that a public life accumulates and stores nowhere. He thought that was where it lived. It did not live there. He thought that was the end of the story. Until tonight. Simon Cowell stood in front of Jess Calloway on the stage of the Pasadena Civic Auditorium and looked at her the way you look at someone whose full meaning you are only now understanding. She still had her chin up. She had not lowered it. "Your dad," Simon said slowly, "is one of the bravest people I've ever met." "He said the same thing about you," Jess said. "I don't think either of you is right." The audience broke, open and sudden, like a wave that had been building the whole time without anyone quite realizing. Share this story if it moved you. Subscribe so you never miss moments like these. Sofia Vergara was crying and not trying to stop it. One hand pressed to her lips. Heidi Klum had her head bowed, shoulders shaking. Howie Mandel sat completely still with both hands over his face. Simon Cowell looked at Jess Calloway for a long moment. He reached forward, not a hand on the shoulder, not an embrace, nothing that would diminish what she was doing by turning it into something to be comforted. He reached forward, and he very deliberately offered his hand. She shook it, firmly, like her father's daughter. He stepped back. He looked at her for one more moment. "Sing," he said. "Don't you dare look away." She went to the microphone. Her hair was still back. Her chin was still up. She had not lowered it, and she was not going to. She sang a song she had written herself in the bathroom at 2 in the morning after the 17th time she had read the letter. It was about the specific geometry of hiding, the angles you learn, the reflexes you build, the exhausting mathematics of making yourself smaller than you are. It was about sitting in the back of photographs, about knowing which side to offer to a camera, about the moment you realize that hiding takes more energy than being seen, and that energy has a cost, and you have been paying it every single day for 3 years without accounting for it. And it was about the moment you stop, not because you are no longer afraid, but because the arithmetic stops adding up. Because the hiding is heavier than the showing. Because someone who loved you told you to lift your chin, and you finally do. Her voice was clear and strong, and completely without apology. It filled the Pasadena Civic Auditorium the way her father's voice had filled small rooms. Without effort, without performance, as though sound were simply the natural state of things and silence the deviation. The auditorium was still. 3,000 people, and nowhere to look, except at this 16-year-old girl with her face in the light and her chin up, singing about the cost of hiding to the largest audience she would ever face. Somewhere on the other side of the world, on a phone screen propped against a water bottle, in a field operations tent with intermittent signal and not enough light, a man in uniform sat watching and did not wipe his face, and did not look away. When the last note ended, Simon Cowell pressed the golden buzzer without a word. Gold confetti fell. Jess Calloway stood in the center of the stage and let it fall around her, and did not lower her chin, and did not turn her face away from the light. In the weeks that followed, Simon reached out to the base in Wiltshire and located Paul Calloway's commanding officer. He sent a handwritten note to Paul through the chain with a request that it actually reach him. It did. The note said only, "Your daughter is extraordinary. She has your courage. You should be very proud." Paul Calloway received the note on a Tuesday. He kept it folded in his front left breast pocket for the remaining 4 months of his deployment. He brought it home. The right moment to stop hiding will always feel impossible. That is how you know it is the right moment. The courage is not in the absence of fear. It is in lifting your chin anyway and letting the light find you.